So listening to the radio on the way in this morning, one of the tracks that came on was Monty Python's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. I just wanted to get a sense in the room. So answering this question of will smart metering enable smarter switching, I certainly think it will. Just a show of hands, do we feel we can answer that question positively as an industry that's going to happen? Because I think it's going to involve all of us being positive about that. So a show of hands, please. Are we positive that we can solve this challenge? Not a great deal of people putting their hands up. Okay, moving on. So, I'll cover three things. For me, quite new to the industry. I've been in the industry just 12 months, just slightly longer. It's a bit of reflecting back to you, my first impressions of the market that I now work in and that we have collective responsibility for driving forward into the future. So there's some lessons learned in that, particularly around some of the other smart meter programs that have happened globally. I'll move on to talk about adoption and use of smart technology. And then I'll close by talking about quite a sensitive group, those that are vulnerable, and how smart technology, in a few examples, really can be transformational for those groups of individuals who are more vulnerable. So in the first section, I think the strapline covers it really. When you look at the global implementation of smart meter programs going back more than 15 years, and in some cases some very large-scale programs of 30 million meter point installations. It's fair to say, as you scan that slide, you'll see the points I've pulled out, but there's not a lot of positivity around the two things that I think we're aiming to achieve, which are a change in behaviour towards lowering consumption and an attitude to switching that's different to the attitude that many have today. So if you add up all those numbers, there's probably 50 million plus meter points, and a lot of evidence that it's difficult to find from answering those two questions a lot of positivity in. So I'm sorry to start on a negative, but I think it sets a context for us, the challenge that we face. Other programs of very significant scale have really struggled to crack the nut of both changing behaviour and enabling smarter switching. There is clearly a very big programme of work being led by Smart Energy GB to build the nation's awareness. Often when the strap lines are pulled out from the results, they talk about the positive aspects of that, but I'm reflecting on the move towards the understanding that people have of smart meters, and a move from sort of 25% this time last year to 33% who understand what a smart meter is amongst the UK population. I can't help thinking lacks a bit of the ambition that we share for the growth that's going to be needed. So the big question is whether the £100 million budget that is set aside to educate people about the smart meter programme is going far enough. And we are in a position where we have to shift the mindset of a nation from one of apathy and distrust of the energy market to one of positive, enthusiastic engagement. So the Estimation Nation campaign, I'm sure you've all seen, amongst other things that obviously are being done with Gaz and Lecky. But the question remains, is that really going far enough? And I think we collectively have responsibility. It's obviously not just Smart Energy GB that have all the answers to that problem. We share that responsibility. So, an awful lot of bad press. So if you look back to sort of back end of 2014, there was a lot of media focus on the anxiety of the costs of the programme, costs spiralling out of control. Fast forward to late 2016, and the focus was shifting towards concerns around the security of the devices and how they may be vulnerable to potential sabotage from hackers. And again, much more recently, March, same concerns obviously are escalating, but with newer concerns about whether data from smart meters can be trusted, along with people being worried about losing smart functionality if they were to try and switch supplier. So the negative press, I'm sure there are positives, and again, I'm sorry for focusing on the negative, but obviously that represents a very significant challenge for us and the government and the industry overall to overcome. I think Matt referenced this earlier, the spiralling need to install an increasing number of meters. Matt talked about 250,000 per week at its peak, which is 3 million in a quarter. So if you look at last quarter, the data that we have, 815,000 smart meters in a quarter were installed, quarter 3 last year. So you can see a very significant increase in the installation rate. So if you fast forward the current installation rates, it leaves us 2/3 short of the requirement to have a smart meter in every home and every small business by the end of 2020. So I'm not sure it can be disputed that the installation goal clearly is under very considerable pressure. Again, reflecting back some evidence of adoption and use of smart meters. So you may, I'm sure, all have read the Smart Energy Outlook, which again, there are some very positive elements to that in terms of the number of people that would recommend a new device for those that have had one fitted, and that being very directly related to a very strong proportion that are positive about the changes that can be achieved in the way that they use their energy, having had a smart meter installed. And obviously the accuracy of the bills that we know is a very significant issue for customers. But obviously there are also some negative aspects of the outcome of this piece of research. And again, coming back to that point of 33% of customers understanding what a smart meter is amongst the UK population, and also that tied to those that have an interest in getting a smart meter still being very, very low. So smart meters are also helping consumers to believe that they have an accurate bill, helping to solve one of the key reasons for the current levels of switching inertia. Another sort of snippet really, non-switchers being more attracted to smart meters, interestingly. So from my perspective, stood where I'm stood, that's a problem. Obviously, we would like to encourage more people to switch. We think there are advantages to customers in being able to switch very easily and simply without some of the complexity that exists in the industry today. So it seems from the evidence that consumers do place significantly greater importance on things like good customer service, simplicity of tariffs, and the price of their energy than they do on their need of their supplier to provide them with a smart meter. So again, coming back to some of Jeff's comments, I think about the push of technology or the push of technology. Clearly this is in a push state, not in a pull state where consumers are chomping at the bit to say yes when either they are contacted by their supplier to offer them the opportunity to have a smart meter installed. So a very sensitive group of customers, vulnerable customers and their switching habits. A series of strategies, reports, white papers have been published that outline the ongoing approach to identify and tackling vulnerability in the energy market. So Ofgem published its consumer vulnerability strategy in the middle of 2013. Citizens Advice have performed their own information request in early 2015. They were concerned about consumers in vulnerable situations having the opportunity to miss out on the potential benefits of the smart meter rollout. Smart Energy GB themselves published their first Smart Energy for All report in July 2015, identifying people characteristics that may act as additional barriers to releasing and realising the benefits of smart meters. And most recently, Ofgem and Citizens Advice came together in October last year and published their key findings into domestic suppliers' social obligations. So there's no shortage of material to refer to in terms of the start point, really, for how we might choose to treat vulnerable customers a little bit differently as we consider the SMART programme. But clearly, when you read some of those reports, you establish the challenge, the difficulty of defining and identifying all types of vulnerability. So to the left are some of those on the slide that may be slightly easier to define and identify, including the elderly, those visually or hearing impaired. But as you progress towards the right of the slide, some of those that are probably less easy to define and identify, those with early stage dementia, suffering a bereavement, or those that are digitally insecure. So there's no silver bullet that's going to provide the robust processes needed to be able to identify and support these customers in the SMART programme. So to follow, I've just highlighted really 3 examples where positive progress is actually being made for vulnerable customer groups. Prepay customers have been recognised as encompassing a particularly vulnerable group for many years. But not all of the UK's millions of prepay customers are necessarily vulnerable. Prepay services provide customers with the option to be able to top up energy by text, phone, or online, and includes alerts for customers when their credit is running low. But prepay may have broader appeal enabled by the catalyst of the mobile-first movement, connected devices and infrastructure, and evolving customer expectations. Prepay is positioned to act as a gateway product for a growing number of customers. It can create opportunities for add-on services over time, such as a time variable rate and in-home connected devices. A prepay energy service won't appeal to everyone. However, the benefits will resonate with many customers that are more comfortable with mobile optimised services, who want to stay informed and have more control over how they pay for their energy use. So as part of the broader portfolio, Prepay offers value that will help establish and improve engagement between the supplier and their customers. By balancing the needs of the supplier and the customer, it will deliver benefits and success for both. But it doesn't escape the spotlight of the media, and just recently there has been a suggestion that prepay customers may well be losing their smart functionality. So I guess this is an issue more widely experienced currently for all first-generation smart meter customers, not just those on prepayment meters, but it highlights the challenge. So the next vulnerable group to focus on was the elderly. So as the UK population continues to age, nearly 10.4 million now aged over 65, compared to 8.6 million just 10 years ago. Many elderly are now vulnerable as they are living on low income, with 1 in 7 pensioners living in poverty and a further 1.2 million having incomes just above the poverty line. So of course some of those customers will also be captured in the vulnerable group of prepay customers. Smart Energy GB and Age UK are working together to help the elderly understand and use smart meters. They provide information on the meters via the charity's website, radio station, newsletters, social media accounts. Leaflets with information on the meters are also available in the retail shops and through local services. But many people, older people, still worry about estimated energy bills and meter readers entering their homes. Smart meters will tackle these issues, and for the first time it will be possible to really take stock of the energy use. The scheme is providing support to allow the elderly to learn the new skills required to learn how a smart meter could help them better manage their energy consumption. So to the visually impaired, another partnership approach. There's a common theme emerging. Energy UK, RNIB and Geo, a developer of Geo being a developer of smart energy products and services for consumers, recognise that an alternative model needs to be developed for the in-home device, particularly for the elderly. The requirement for them to be optimised for blind and partially sighted people to be able to use them. So the accessible technology, as they call it, is designed by Geo to be easy to use and include sort of colourful and tactile buttons and speech output. So it's necessary that blind and partially sighted people are given equal access to opportunity to monitor energy usage and potentially save energy and money through switching. So Ofgem wants to see step change. I think they're recognising that there's an awful lot more to be done for the vulnerable customer group. So at the end of January this year, it published how it wants to see a step change in the way that the industry thinks and acts towards vulnerable people. It being a proposal to introduce a new principle into the standards of conduct to make it clear that TCF, treating customers fairly, includes customers in vulnerable situations. Also proposing to obligate suppliers to identify and support these customers. So it seems from my short review so far, there's a significant challenge for the industry in delivering against both of those obligations. So, leaving the room, I would like you just to take a few things away, a few thoughts. Happy to discuss them separately, but in terms of the lessons learned, the UK rollout has to buck the international trend, otherwise it's not going to succeed. We have to answer the negative media attention that's being delivered to us regularly. Realisation towards the installation goal of 2020 and the challenge of getting to that 53 million meter point installations seems increasingly out of the realm of possibility. Seems that smart meter benefits need to be made clearer to customers in terms of engaging them in the adoption of that new technology. And there's a need to increase the propensity for those customers to want to have a smart meter. And vulnerable customers, seems like some progress has been made, but a lot more needs to be done. That being a very significant challenge for our industry. Thank you very much.